Welcome back, guys. It's On the Couch with Woody, and I've got a great guest on today's show, and his name is Robbie Mortimer. Welcome, Robbie.
Thanks, mate. Thanks very much for having me.
Awesome
It's
to
a pleasure
have
be
you,
here.
mate. Yeah,
Cheers.
fantastic. Mate, well, let's start right from the beginning. Music for you is obviously, I've had a small conversation before the show, but you've always had music in your life, and you've been lucky enough to make a living out of music since the start. But was it right from the beginning? Where did it spawn itself, mate?
Yeah, we grew up with music just in our house. Like it's my earliest music memories were I guess just being around us five boys. We had long car rides down to Sydney and on holidays, and just it was just always there. I've never known a time of my life where there wasn't music or a soundtrack or something that was going. So and yeah, my mum and dad have a huge appreciation for music, and my dad was a fantastic poet, and it was just always there. It was that creative kind of side was always there. So and mum and dad kind of gave us the opportunity to do whatever we wanted to do growing up, as long as we did it properly. And yeah, I guess I've found the love of music from a very early age. I've tried a lot of different other avenues in my life and this and that, but I think it always I'm so glad that I was brave enough to kind of take the jump into music at an early age, where I was not starting too late where I couldn't make a living out of it. But music's taken me around the world, and it's and it's from those early roots of growing up in a country town with four older crazy brothers, and yeah, it's all I've known is having it so present.
So you're the youngest of four brothers.
There's five.
Oh, five. Sorry, yeah. So you've got obviously with the boys playing music around the house, and you were watching them. Did you pick up guitar or drums first? Or?
Yeah. So I remember this so clearly. We were watching like Rage or something in the morning. Remember the video clips, and I remember it was Carlos Santana and Rob Thomas, Smooth.
Smooth, yep.
And I remember going into my brother James's room and grabbing his guitar and coming out and just like kind of watching. Obviously Santana's doing this, and I was just, just kind of watching it and just being mesmerized by how cool, and as ironically as it sounds, like, pun intended, but it was so smooth. Everything he was doing was just, and it just looked cool. It was sexy. It was fun. It was euphoric, and I remember that so clearly, and then I remember James came out and saw me with his guitar, and and it was, I just remember, I don't even think James would remember that, but I just remember that so clearly of being, and then I shared a room with my brothers growing up, and a couple of different brothers at different stages, and we'd have the old Discmans or the old Walkmans or whatever, and we'd go to bed and I could hear like James would play like The Living End or and every kind of memory, as I said, I grew up with has some sort of soundtrack or some sort of song, some sort of artist, something for kind of each phase and everything I've been through. So yeah, I started off playing guitar. I got guitar lessons at 9 years old.
9, yep.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I'm not a incredible guitarist by any means, but I really enjoyed the craft. I enjoyed. I fascinated with the fact that you could press your hands on something and it would make this beautiful sound. And I was just really fascinated by like the mechanics of that, you know what I mean? And then I got into like a lot of poetry and songwriting, and it was really influenced by a lot of the artists I was listening to. And so then I moved into kind of discovering I had a voice and being brave enough, I guess, to use it. So yeah.
So you were you writing songs from a young age? Like, were you in high school, or when did you start to? When can you remember your first song that you sort of?
I remember writing some like kind of poems, or I guess I called them poems because there was no music to them. So I remember doing that at an early age, so maybe like 9, 10, 11 years old. And then I remember I wrote my first song in year 7, so I was 12, going 13, I would just remember that being such a and then I couldn't stop writing. I loved it, but I would never show anyone. Like I would kept it in and I would write it on an old diary, and I still write a lot of my songs, like that.
By hand,
I try to, like, my brain works a bit quick sometimes, so I have to voice memo it or type it or whatever, but that diary would still be around somewhere, and it's
that's
just
awesome.
I was just really fascinated by it, and then melodies, and then like it was just something that I knew I loved, and I was very influenced by that. So then I obviously turning into I was just fascinated by the way that, a song can go with the melody, which thing, and then it just kind of all made sense. It was like an algorithm that made sense to me. So
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And home has always been. You spent some time in the Southern Shire where we are now in Meadow Music, but home was, for the most part, your dad took you back to Orange.
Yeah, well, out of the 5 boys, I was actually the one that was born out of the farm. So I've only ever known Orange as home.
Right,
So I was the youngest. As I mentioned, I'm the youngest of 5 boys.
Yep.
But I only ever knew Orange as a town. I wasn't alive when Dad was playing footy, and I didn't do the big move out to Orange. I was born out there, so
that's home,
so I've always lived and was always a part of a country town and a country community, and had those country roots, and so that was that kind of that lifestyle and that hard work and that understanding of what Mum and Dad were doing for us kind of gave me a lot of inspiration to write and be a part of, I guess, a community that likes to listen to stories and songs and stuff like that. But Orange was I'm a born and bred Orange boy.
That's awesome. So when you left school, did you jump straight into a band, or did you? You played football. So for those who don't know, the Mortimer family, and close to my heart, being a mad Bulldog supporter. Everyone, you probably know. He's just mad. He loves them. I said, yeah, I do. But the Bulldog family and the Mortimer family, if you say that, the Bulldog family and the Mortimer family, they're synonymous. And did you know, when did you find out how successful your family, your dad and your uncles were in the Bulldogs?
Mate, you know what's funny? I always knew, but I didn't know any different. No. So that was the funny thing. I think the thing I love most about my family is, and I was only talking about this the other day when I was speaking about my Uncle Steve, and when he would introduce himself, people would be absolutely head over heels in awe, and he would always say, "G'day, my name's Steve." Yeah. And it was like, they know who you are, and it was just something, I remember witnessing that at like maybe 11, 12 years old and going, they know who you are, but
important, yeah.
So I didn't really know any different until I kind of grew up, and then I think I realised when I went to a Bulldogs game with Dad after COVID, and I saw people like tapping, that's Peter Mortimer, that's and I was kind of like, oh wow, they've left a wonderful legacy on the greatest game of all, and a club that there's but that comes from being a good person, being and so I guess I didn't really know any different, but I knew that there was something special there because of the way, but the whole thing that I love most about it, as I mentioned, the way Uncle Steve would introduce himself. But one thing I always tell the story of this is, people would mention they'd say, "Oh, Dad, can I get a photo, Peter?" and blah blah blah. He says, "Oh, you don't want that. That was last century, and he's just such. I always knew Dad as a farmer. I never knew Dad as a footy player.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I never grew up going to the rugby league games, or going to Belmore, I never do that. I never did that. I knew Dad as a farmer. So for me, it was a bit odd, I guess. And I probably haven't even shared that. Mum and Dad wouldn't even know that.
No,
but my whole interactions with Dad was, he was a farmer raising 5 boys and working his absolute ass off, and showing how to raise 5 good men who have good work ethic and have a good respect for women, and that was very much modelled in our house with we worship the ground our mum walks on, and
it's great,
and it's just everything that Mum and Dad kind of laid for us. So I just didn't really understand it until
until later. That's great. So Orange, so you're leaving school and you're out in the big world, and you've played football at a good level as well. Yeah, you played for the Dolphins up there at Redcliffe. Yeah, we're now in the NRL as an NRL team, but always for many years was a strong club. Yeah, and was that like a semi-professional or professional role? Would you call it?
Yeah, well, rugby league was always the first stream of mine. It was always the first thing. It was the thing I'd go to sleep with a footy in my arms, and with the headgear on, and like with the socks on
Yep.
lay out, clean your footy boots up before a game.
All about it, yeah.
I was absolutely fascinated by rugby league as well. But then I'd have this thing where I'd had this ticking thing of music where I jump around the room and jumping on the bed and pretending to be a rock star and literally close my eyes and pretending I'm playing to all these people, but then I'd get that on the weekend. We'd go and watch the Bulldogs play. I'd look around the stadium and go I had it in a kind of a different way. So I loved rugby league. I was good at rugby league. I enjoyed it. I went and did some stuff with the AIS down in Canberra, and I was a part of that program. And then I had a year with the Tigers.
Yep.
When I was, like SG Ball. I was travelling down every weekend to play, and when I'd get my opportunity. And then I signed with Redcliffe Dolphins, and had an affiliation with the Broncos there with the 20s program.
Yep.
Which ended up me back at Redcliffe, and I loved playing footy. I loved the contacts I've met and the people, but I didn't love it as much as music in the end. I we'd go on footy trips away and buses, and we'd go after in the sheds and that, and I'd pull some guitar out, play a bit of country music or a bit of music, and it was such a thing that I realised your guitar can take you anywhere and meet so many people, and the boys loved it. So I loved my rugby league days. I absolutely loved my rugby league days. I don't miss a game on the weekend. I watch most games every weekend when I'm not on the road. And but yeah, music just made sense. It was just I went and tried some different avenues as well, but yeah, just music was the thing that and I didn't feel any pressure in terms of coming from a very rugby league dominated family. I was a bit of a lost kid, I guess, and mum and dad said they don't care if I do ballet or soccer or want to be a professor. Like, just do it properly.
Yeah, that's exactly what my mum and dad said.
It was really great. So and I remember saying to my dad, I want to be a musician, and Dad said, well, take the biggest bite you can and bloody chew like hell, son.
So, that's funny. Great. I exactly the same thing happened because I was a police officer for 5 years. Yeah. And I did that in my early 20s, and I just said, Mum, I can't do this anymore. She said, what do you want to do? So I said, I want to be a musician. And she goes, well, be a good one.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
Isn't that lovely? We both had supportive parents who didn't see it as like an out for being some washed up druggo or whatever, the cliche that was running around at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's fantastic. So you obviously were bitten by it from that young age, which you record the story in front of Rage, and then you did some work, and you can make a good living in Australia being a covers artist, and I'm sure you've done gigs everywhere and anywhere around that Orange area and travelled all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said that you did a Matchbox 20 tribute show for a while, and that would have been great, like Robbie Mortimer presents Matchbox 20. When did the need to go, okay, now I've got to stand on my own 2 feet and really give this a red hot go? Was it, we can probably talk about that contact you've got with the Zach Brown band as well. Was it around that time meeting him, or was it you just knew your burning side being a songwriter, I've got to do this as Robbie Mortimer?
No, I always wanted to do it as Robbie Mortimer, and I would find it really funny. I'd go and play pub gigs every weekend where no one's listening, no one's, you're under the, you think you've just hit this high note or whatever, and it's just because Parramatta have just scored in the corner and everyone's cheering at the TV, not you. So that's a funny thing about that is it's very humbling being a covers artist, and but I always wanted to do my own music. I was writing my own music all the time, so I would test my songs out to a crowd that's not listening. And every now and then you get a bit of it, and you go, okay, well, something happened there. There was something. So go back and work on. There was something in that, and I would always be really observant of, like, I'm doing this thing on a loop pedal, or I'm stomp boxing, I'm doing all this stuff, and then you'd just be really aware of my surroundings and understand that, okay, there's something in that song. Okay, so I'd go back and I'd craft it, and like I've got songs that I've written probably 10 years ago at least that I still haven't released because I know that one day it'll happen, it'll flow. So I've got this crazy back catalogue of that, but there was a couple of defining moments that really made me realise that I could do this as a profession under Robbie Mortimer, and The first one is, I went over to Mexico to watch the Zac Brown Band. We flew all the way from Australia. Myself, my brother James, and three of our mates, and we were having it was like a Q&A. So one of each of the band members was doing, like, I think Clay did cooking, like Clay's cooking school. Jimmy DiMartini, the fiddle player, he did a yoga class. Someone else did, and Coy Bowles, the lead guitarist from Zac Brown Band, did a Q&A, and it was like 12 o'clock, hot Mexican sun. We were hungover, we were hating, and I kind of had the option to go to the swim up bar with the boys, or go and sit in the sun, and I had questions. I wanted to know these questions. So there was, like, out of all the people at this thing, there was 13 people that showed up to it. No one showed up to this thing.
Oh, really? So you got almost a one-on-one.
And I was, and I sat there. Like he said, I got there half an hour early, and I remember the boy saying, "No, it's too hot. We're going to the swim up bar." And I was like, oh. And it's the best music decision I've ever made in my life. It changed my life. That decision of going, and I've already had 5 days on the piss, I have 1 hour I can ask these questions, and it is the best music decision I've ever made.
That's awesome.
Because I sat, I spoke, I asked questions. Coy couldn't believe I'd flown all the way from Australia to I am such a fan of the band and what they represent and the music they sing, and I literally got to have a conversation like this, with a couple other people that would just kind of want to get a photo with him at the end. So everyone said, "Any other questions?" And I'm like, "I got another one," and I kind of had,
Had him prepared.
Yeah. And then at the end, I went up and said, "Oh, may I please get a photo?" And he shook my hand and said, "Dude, I love you're so interested." He said, "I can't believe you flew all the way over here." And he said, and I said, "I'm going to make an album. I'm doing an album." And he said, "Hey," like Coy said to me at the end, like, it's not in front of anyone. He said, "The day that you record that album, I want you to sign a copy and I want you to send it to me. Email me. Here's my email address. When you finish it, I'll send you my address and I want a copy."
That's awesome.
And I was like, "Oh my God," like, absolutely, like, and I tend to, like, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. Like, it's a really emotional thing for me, because it's just so special. Like, and 9 months later, 10 months later, I emailed him and said, "Hey, Coy, I don't think you'd remember me, but I was that Australian kid you gave it." And he's like, "Hey, dude, like, what's your number?" Like, called me and he said, "Did you really make an album?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, send me a copy, but as long as make sure you sign it for me." So, like, I went and printed, like, a photo of me and Coy, like, signed the album, put a couple of guitar picks in there and sent it off to him. And he called me. He said, "Mate, it's good stuff." Like, it was shit. Like, the stuff that I'd written wasn't great, but it was just, I just needed someone to be like, of that caliber, to be like, and you know why he said, "The reason I told you to send it to me," he said, "because every single day I have people come to me and say, hey, Coy, I'm going to do singing lessons." And Coy's like, "Oh yeah," or I'm going to buy a Les Paul guitar and I'm going to play guitar just like you. I'm going to buy a Gibson, I'm going to play guitar just like." And Coy's like, "Oh yeah, send me a video when you do it." Because everyone's just empty words, you know what I mean? Like, Coy's very much put your money where your mouth is.
For sure.
If you're going to say something, do it. And the fact that I've now been opened the door to the Zac Brown Band and to have this guidance from someone like Coy Bowles, just because he said to me, like, "You did it. You said you were going to do it, and you did it." And I have people every day tell me they're going to do something, and they never do it. So he said, to be honest, I probably didn't think he'd do it. But I did see there was a bit of a flicker in your eye. There was, this kid's got something. If he's going to fly halfway around the world to come and see his favourite band, he's serious. So, mate, it changed my life. And I was just on, I had a 3-hour FaceTime to him this morning, and he gives me guidance, gives me love. And the best thing is, we don't even talk much about music. We talk,
just catch up.
We talk about life, and we hang crap on each other, and we talk like best mates. And
that's awesome,
mate. It was life changing for me. And after COVID kind of hit, I was a bit down and out, and was able to, as most musicians were, and was able to line up some FaceTimes with him, and when he saw I was serious, and then he said, "Jump on the first plane when the borders open. Jump on the first plane over here." So went with my brother James again. We went over. Him and my other best friend, they took a little detour road trip. I went to Nashville and wrote some songs, and then went and stayed with him and his family for 10 days or something like that, and kind of became part of the family. So
That's
it's
great.
incredible.
And so are those songs on your releasing your album now?
No,
Or just-
I've been I haven't released any. I released Blow the Speakers obviously at the start of the year, but I went away and wrote for 2 years.
Yep.
2.5 years. I wrote every day. I wrote hundreds and hundreds of songs to try and it's a muscle, you know more than anyone. Really focused on getting better and finding my craft and who I am as a songwriter, who I am as an artist, and I had to make some really hard decisions, and I was so focused, and I knew I kind of deep down knew what I was doing. Like as much as it didn't make sense to many other people, it made sense to me. So it's great. Yeah,
that's unreal. So where's you've got Blow the Speakers out, which has done really well for you. It's been touching on a nerve.
Yeah.
So are you going to release an album, or are you going to just keep releasing a few singles?
Yeah. I've got this crazy back catalogue of all these songs, and as I mentioned, I wrote the theme song for PBR, so the professional bull riding, and I've been on the circuit with those guys this year. It's called Cowboy Up, so we're just figuring out, me and my team, what we're doing, whether you're going to release it as like just a DSP or on YouTube, or try and sell it off to the PBR, or figuring that out at the moment. So I'm going to try and have 3 or 4 releases, 5 releases out this year if all goes to plan, and then eventually I want to be a storyteller. I've got so many stories. I'm a pretty empathetic, passionate person, so I feel a lot. I write it all down. So I've got a lot of stories that I've lived, or stories that when I've met people, I've kind of turned their story into a song. So I always joke, be careful when you're talking to me, I might turn you into a song. So,
yeah, it's good. You probably get more people wanting to talk to you.
So mate, to answer the question, sorry, I'm just kind of testing the waters a little bit now with some singles, and I'd love to put it. I'll definitely put an album out in the next. I don't have a time. I don't have a date and time, but it's definitely in the works, and I've got enough songs there. It's just more so like picking and choosing what theme it's about, and I'm a big believer in listening to an album from start to finish.
Yeah, same with me. Yeah.
My previous album, it was called 200 Years Too Late, and it's an old Jimmy Buffett reference, and the first song connects to the second song, which has a link to the third song, which then has a link. So it's literally a story. So
sit back
and it's a bit of a movie. So I did that on purpose, and it's some personal stuff, some stuff that I made up and went along with it to make the story up, and add a bit of drama in there and add a bit of fun. I know the Lumineers do stuff like that, and I'm very inspired by actual songwriting. So
that's great.
Mate, I love music. It's limitless. There's no boundaries with it, you know, and you can try and fit people into a box. And this is why I love Zac Brown Band so much, because you put a Zac Brown Band record on, and it'll come out with the most heavy rock and stuff, and then it'll turn into this unbelievable coasty. It'll transport you all around the world. You'll be headbanging at a concert. Then the next song will be this: you're sitting on a beach drinking mojitos in the Bahamas. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And that's what music does. And I'm just so passionate. You can tell I'm so passionate about it.
That's fantastic. Now, before we tell everyone how to find you, and there's a couple of questions. The first one is what to expect when they come to a Robbie Mortimer show. I've seen enough of your live performance to see that you're definitely, I'd call you a country rock frontman, and songwriter. You just love grabbing the mic and really sort of working into the crowd, which I think is starting to happen a lot more. Yeah. And for me, from my oak, where I cut my teeth, that's what I was doing in the 90s. Yeah, that's what everyone did. You just had a band and you're a front man. So is that something that you really want to put out there? I mean, you've got Travis Collins is great. I mean, he's a great musician, but he's a great front man, and I notice he does a lot more of it. And then, you've got James Johnson. I thought, actually, when I was at the Bulldogs game and you were singing, I remember you covered a James Johnson song there. He's a good friend of mine, James. He's been a wonderful mentor of mine. He's been a very good, very kind person to me. He's lovely, mate. James and his manager, Bo, they've been very supportive. They saw something in me, probably when others didn't. And a lot of the reason why I'm doing it today is because they were the first people to go this kid's good. So get in there. We ended up played a festival. And it's so funny because James Johnson was on before me. Yeah, right. And it's wild how the world works. James, he will go down as one of the biggest, country stars in Australia, and that Australia's ever had. So, definitely that's my mantra. I grew up
listening to like In Excess, my all-time kind of favorite
Right. Yeah.
favorite band, all-time favorite band. The reason I had long hair was like, I just love the way he worked the crowd, and then you got, as I said, a Matchbox 20. They're all euphoric front men that have a presence and have and I believe you're either born with it or you're not. I think it's a thing that you can really work on, but I think you have it in you and you can shape it. And everyone has their own kind of strengths and weaknesses in music, and you just got to find your strengths. Yeah. And my whole thing was I want to get really, really good at the things I'm really good at.
Yeah, work on your strengths.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Instead of being kind of okay at 450 things, I made a choice to not go into being a lead guitarist because I was like, no, I'm going to be an insane frontman. I don't need exactly right. So I think that was my avenue. So to answer your question there, what to expect is, I think my whole thing is I want you to leave feeling better than when you came. That is my thing. I want you to ride the emotions with me. You'll see how much it means to myself and my band and my people that I'm working with, and it's not just a thing for me where it's like, okay, yep, sweet, on to the next, back to the tour bus, this and that. I'm obviously not at that stage where that's a thing.
No, but you want to engage with those
every gig. I want it to make it personal. I want it to feel like you're the only person in the room, and I feel like I've got a presence of doing that kind of anyway. But but yeah, mate, it's I just am so passionate about live performance and the whole thing. But I've learned to fall in love with all the bad things of it too. But yeah, my whole thing is, you leave, if you come to a Robbie Mortimer show, you leave feeling better than when you came.
Oh, that's great. Now, before we go on to talking about where you are on your socials and all that sort of stuff, but let's just quickly touch on, because I get in trouble if I don't ask this one because of our better halves. What's family? Is family a wife or
I've got a partner and I've got a partner and I've got a little bub as well. So it's been a really special ride for me. It's been a bit of a journey. Like I was really, really petrified to be a dad because firstly I had such a wonderful role model as a dad.
Yep.
I think there's a bit of that imposter syndrome as a creative. You have like you're always doubting yourself. You're always you're a puppet on a string sometimes to other people. And then I was worrying about how I might be able to turn that off. And I've got a beautiful little daughter, and I absolutely love her to death. And she's made me see the world in a whole different way. I'm not a selfish person, but you realise unintentionally you are before you have children. You know what I mean? So right. I've got a beautiful little girl, and partner's very supportive of everything that I'm doing on the road. And
is she in the music game, or she?
No, she doesn't even sing in the shower.
Okay.
So yeah, she we've been together for a long time, and it's been a really really good thing to have a foundation and someone that the highs and the lows and the goods and the bad and everything. It's like you ride this crazy wave together, and and as I said, I actually have a bit more of a purpose. If anything, it's actually made me focus. I was a special needs school teacher before I started music full time. I've always done music, always done it, but I was working, and then the day I held my daughter, Sadie, I quit that day. I put my resignation in because I said, respectfully, I don't mean to sound like an ass or anything like that here, but I remember saying I've spent 6 years saving other people's kids. Yep. And that sounds horrible. I don't mean it in a bad way, but I need to save my own now. So it was the best thing. It was the best thing that happened to me. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I was the same, mate. I was exactly the same. Like, I spent first 5 years of my life giving to the community and seeing and going through some things that you wouldn't wish on anyone. Yeah. And I thought, selfishly as well, unselfishly, for the better of my own mental health and happiness, I thought I've got to get out of this job. And that's when, like yourself, mate, music has been such a pillar of strength, and then my wife and kids and all that comes along. But great, it's a wonderful ride. Like it's, you sit there and you might look at your bank balance every.
There's a lot of head scratching going on. There's a lot of late nights, mate. Just recently, it's the exact same thing. It's but it makes you happy.
It makes you happy, and you've got to give it a crack because you've only got a limited time, and to really take it on. And then, as you said, like you can always, and you probably won't now because you've got yourself a name. I mean, I watched the PBR video of some fan that posted, I couldn't wait for this song. She's singing every song. That must be a great feeling to know that
it is.
Somebody's heard your song on radio, don't even know you, and they're coming up to get their autographs, signed, and that connection with the country fan, I think it's the best thing about country music hands down, is that we are so connected with our fans.
Oh,
And
mate,
they message me all the time, and I think, so here they go
great, isn't
again.
it?
But you've got to answer it and be respectful and
Yeah.
and giving.
It's funny on the weekend. I just had you do the meet and greet, and as I said, I played to 7,000 people on the weekend, and little country boy Robbie's looking around going, "Holy shit, like,
This is
you know,
cool."
It's half my hometown here." You know what I mean? So it's funny, like but I had people come up and I'm having an in-depth conversation, and they're probably like, "Mate, we just wanted a photo with you," like, but I'm so invested in like like in that, and
you want to know where they come from. And
and I say, where you from? Where and they're like, "Oh, we love Blow the Speakers, we love your song, we love Dashboard, we love this kind of stuff." And
that's good.
And it's funny because you write that song in your small town in your bedroom, and all of a sudden you're singing it to all these
people.
So and I definitely don't take that for granted. I'm very much aware of my journey, and very proud of the fact that I'm not, it goes so quickly, so I'm not blinking and I'm missing it. I feel like I've had to work extra hard to get where I am, and I've had a lot of setbacks, but I look at it with optimism, and I look at it as a better person. And my whole thing is I just need to be better than I was yesterday. And it's okay to have off days, but then you've got to be double good the day after,
that's right.
You know what I mean? So that's
well, that's true, mate. And I saw that with when I was at the Bulldogs function, and even the fact that I walked up and I was just going to say bye, and you put your hand out, stopped mid-song and shook my hand, said, "Good, thanks, man. Good to catch up." I thought, that's a true artist, and that's a good person as well.
Thanks, Woody. I appreciate it.
Man, it goes. I don't go unnoticed because I'm the same. When I do the band, and we just come back from Bundaberg, and I said, the boys said, "I'm gone." And I was an hour talking, or maybe 40 minutes. But after I just sung for 2 hours, and I just made sure, and some of the faces.
That's why you're still doing it, mate. And that's why.
Mate, some of the faces, they just stare at you and say, "Hello."
It's wonderful, isn't that? Yeah.
But they're just so happy to know that they've spent their $35 on you, and you've got the time of day to actually get the photos. I think probably for all the younger ones out there, the younger musicians, that's the new black, and it's good. That's a good thing. This means that we're not looking at ourselves as someone bigger than anyone else. We're just providing a very important community role.
Absolutely, mate.
And giving happiness,
mate,
spreading happiness.
I always say this: I don't have a job without the fans.
Without the fans.
I don't have a job if they're not showing up. No one,
So that's why you spend the time with them.
And it's not even so much. Like I remember how much. I remember Braith and Astor winked at us one time when we were running out of the shed. When he was running out of the sheds, because he knew we were, we were just kids that loved rugby league. From then on, my whole life, like anyone, it was Braith and Astor, because he made
one gesture.
It was one gesture, and it can just change your life. And if anyone ever asked me my all-time favorite player, it's Braith and Astor, and I don't know if there's many people that would say it's Braith and Astor, but he made just
that connection.
It wasn't even an effort. He didn't do anything more than just acknowledge, and it changed my life. And it's the artist I want to be, and I'm really glad I learned that early. Like, because as the littlest thing, I always give my guitar picks away. Just to kids, and I often get messages from people a couple of years later saying, "Oh, I'm playing guitar now," and it's got the pick, or it's stuck up on the wall, and it's like, and like this. I mean, it's totally respectfully too. I countless. I don't know who that person is because I've given so many away. But the fact that I was able to have that kind of sort of connection, and I've got to reiterate, I'm very, very much early stage in my career. I'm not making much of a difference in terms of that. But those little things can turn into big things if you let them. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud, and I was modelled that as a kid as well. And I see my brother James interacts really well with people when he's at gigs, and he's a very likable person as well. And I think it's just you've got a choice in the morning. You wake up and see what day you're going to have, and I understand that there's so many bad things in the world, and what we can control is I guess a part of our happiness. Considering, and it's all, I totally understand. It's all circumstantial as well. There's a lot of bad things out there, and you've seen it with your work, and I've seen it with my work as well. So that's made me much more rounded. That just putting a smile on someone else's face is such an important part. So, and I'm very, very grateful that I learned that.
Well, mate, thanks for coming down from the enemy territory, Newcastle.
I don't tell me people that.
A Bulldog in Knights territory. I told Joey Johns.
I had my Bulldogs shirt on at the airport going up to PBR, and all the Knights players were there flying down to Melbourne, so there was a bit of this going on. So
that's right.
A bit of this going on actually.
Good on you, man. Give it to them. So, all right, well, let's finish up. That was amazing. Thanks for coming down
Good on
and
you,
spending
Woody.
some
Appreciate
time
it, mate.
on the
Thank you.
couch with Woody.
Yeah.
And let's finish off by just tell the, where's your camera? Here. Yeah, just tell the camera all about where they can find you, and we'll be featuring Robbie's interview on our show on Saturday. So
Beauty. Yeah. So I've on all the social media platforms, so Instagram, Facebook, TikTok,
YouTube.
YouTube as well. And it's just at Robbie Mortimer. There's a lot of fake ones getting out there now. So at Robbie Mortimer. Come and follow me. Be a part of the journey. It's going to be a good one. So strap yourself in.
Awesome. Sounds good, mate.
Good on
Thanks
you, Woody.
again, brother.
Thanks,
Good
mate.
on you,
Appreciate
mate.
it. Appreciate your
Awesome.
time.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.